Fuck yes! Yes! We fucking did it!
Oh, that's perfect. You got it just right.
I know. A dollop of milk and 7 sugars.
It wouldn't be the same with 6.
Favourite scene so far to shoot with Taika was during episode 7, I think, when we are on the treasure hunt, and that's when we get quite close, and we're sitting around the fire, and you'll see that scene where we're talking about opening a restaurant, I think, and that was all made up on the spot, and I can't believe we didn't crack up during it.
I really did just have to sit there and wait, and I knew I only had one line in the scene, and I just knew I had to say it at the end. So it was quite like an interesting acting exercise, because I really was just like sitting there, and the improv was much longer as well than what went in the show. So I did just have to sit there for ages, like roasting that fake snake, which was actually quite delicious. Fun fact. And I just it was really, really fun. It was really like fun to watch those two, because those two bounce off of each other so well. So that was very cool.
Thing I've always encouraged.
Bottle it up.
No, Frenchie. No, that's the worst thing you could do.
Sorry.
Other suggestions?
Oh, and there was the time with the horse. When we made you French kiss the horse. Do you remember?
That part was a little improvised, because the original script said 40 oranges, and then I added the 10 for the glaze and all that kind of stuff with Reese. And he knows I bake, so he's like, okay, stop going on about your cakes. It barely tastes like oranges. I say to myself. And I just wanted to create what the cake would be. So I came up with the recipe, and I posted it on Easter.
You will rue this day, Edward. You will rue it long, and you will rue it hard.
Hey, made you a sandwich for the trip.
Hey, I would have eaten that. A fucking pox on all of you.
You can't put a fucking time limit on fun, mate. Jack, whip the ball! Whip the
Fucking hell, Jack.
When I burst out of the crate and the exercise line, the like we've been exercising together because we want our bodies to be smaller. Fun fact, I improvised that line.
Oh, it's so funny.
Thanks.
The scene where you paid yourself. Was that
I think it got cut. We're talking about a cut scene. This is fun. Yeah,
I could not look at you. I think it was when the boat was getting invaded. You were hiding behind me, and when I stood up, there was like a pool of urine.
Oh my god! Yeah. Okay. This is fun. BTS. So it's in the pilot, right? And it's when Steed is like, oh, we're gonna be really scared, and then everyone's like Samba like chops the melon, and you're like rubbing stuff on your face. That whole sequence. Yeah, how's it? Hi, my friend Jackie's in the chat, and she's a nightmare from hell. So that whole sequence, you don't actually see me in that sequence, but what I am doing during that is I'm hidden. I don't think you see it at any point. I'm hidden behind Christian. It was meant to be this kind of like, I don't know if it worked. It was meant to be this like joke reveal that Christian stands up and like wee John stands up and Lucius is like hidden behind him, like curled into a ball, and he's so scared that he's peeing himself. and I will never forget Taylor, one of the like prop masters on the show, had to like be behind me, and do you remember he had to pour like a bucket of water through my legs?
Yeah, the improvised urine pump.
Yeah, because they didn't even know, they weren't ready for it. So I think because it was just like a spur of the moment thing, and he like poured it through my legs. It was really funny. I guess it just didn't work, but yeah, it was. I remember doing that. It took so long. Someone tweeted this like screenshots of like Lucius pretending to work in the background, and they're obviously like doing it. Obviously, it's like they think it's like a funny choice I made. I'm like, no, that was like something I just did, so I didn't have to like tie knots. Like I would just like grab a broom, because I didn't want to have to like actually do any of the. I mean, the idea that we were going to retain any of that, like surely I improvised my legs are sticks. I'm very proud that made it in. I can't remember what the original line was, but I remember Taika just being like, just improvise something there, just improvise something funny, like just try out something different. And the terror of like being asked to do that for Taika, do you know what I mean? I remember being so scared. And I remember saying, oh, hello, I'm a little wooden boy and my legs are sticks. And I walked away from that scene being like, like I was so mortified that I said my legs are sticks. I was like, because it was one of those things that I didn't know I was going to say it until I said it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, terrifying. So when we're sewing, didn't that make it in?
Yeah, because that wasn't in the whole Little John being a tailor and sewing, and that was just me being camp.
Because what do you say that you make dresses?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, it's actually the other way around.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens. And someone asked about the dolly as well, the little dolly that I had on the bed. That was improvised also. It was in the room, and I just thought that I don't think either Frenchie or Little John had ever had a room before. And the sort of backstory for Little John, he's from Dublin or somewhere in Ireland. Some obviously not Dublin, Belfast, but I think he probably is a pretty tough guy, but he has a really huge soft side, and he's never seen a little dolly before, so he's like, "It's a little dolly," you know. And they're so overwhelmed by having a room and a little toy for the first time, you know.
After the "Have you ever been sketched" moment, and me and you high five. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was improv. I remember. I don't know why I remember.
At the end of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, nice! I messed up that.
Dude, people don't know, actually, this is a fun fact, that during the fuckery, you know when he sings in the episode, he like sings that beautiful aria, he was singing that in real life.
Keep watching, big finale coming
I don't think a lot of people know that. I have a video somewhere of him rehearsing it, like the that bit. He had to learn it like in Italian. Oh, so good. Fun behind the scenes fact is you'll remember, you were there, you're in that scene. That went on for much longer, like in the real version. Do you know, it was about, they obviously cut it down for time, but like when we were filming it, that whole like, ooh, daddy, like he did that for about 3 times as long as he actually does it in the show.
Yeah. It was very hard to laugh.
The first kind of like romantic or like sexual scene that Black Pete and Lucius have together after they've been like canoodling behind the barrels, and then they get up and Izzy comes in and like tells me to go do some work. Like we improvised at the end, do you remember? And like they truly used like 3 seconds of it, but we were so self-indulgent, we improvised for so long. But because I think they wanted some like awkward flirting, you know. It's at the very end where we're like, well, this was fun.
Yeah, like,
okay, you know.
so I'll call you maybe.
He thinks you're a prostitute.
I'm no prostitute, mate!
We could have made magic.
I want them to feel the same pain as I slice through their arteries. So they feel also that emptiness I felt when I lost my family. On an earlier draft for episode 7, Jim is lying when they say that teal is their favorite color. In that scene where Olu is telling Jim that they've been friends for, over a year and he doesn't know anything about them, Jim just says teal to get it over with and move on. But then later when they're saying goodbye and they don't know if this might be the last time we're saying goodbye to each other, Jim confesses to Olu that their actual favorite color is purple. Now, I love that got nixed because I also noticed that teal is the color of Olu's earring, and that's been his earring since the beginning. So it's nice to have that detail that Jim's favorite color happened because of Olu. Very, very little prep, that scene wasn't even on the schedule that day. I didn't have my nose that morning because the scenes that we were shooting didn't have the nose. So I had to run to the makeup chair and get my nose on, which is about 45 minutes to an hour. During lunch, I ran through lines. After lunch, we rehearsed the scene a couple times. Nathan and I were like, we're gonna kiss in the rehearsal. And then I slapped my mustache and beard on. Oh yeah, so I kissed him first without the mustache and the beard, just the nose, which was an experience. And then we shot the scene, and that's that. Fun fact though, Nathan said I have very soft lips. That is correct. All of the random Spanish words were not scripted. I think the only ones that were scripted were the pendejo when I encounter al feo de la vaca, and some bits when I'm talking to Nana. But the rest is just me either improvising or scripting them myself, because the diary I completely translated in Spanish. It was originally just in English. Yes, that was actually supposed to be in English, but that was one of the things that I changed into Spanish. It was originally going to be little man. Shut up, little man. And I was like, cállate, hombrecito. Okay, so for that one, I'm yelling, me tienes hasta aquí con tu cantadito de mierda. I don't know if the mierda, you can listen to it on the cut or if it makes it on the scene, but essentially it translates to you have me up to here with your sing-songy voice.
We weren't supposed to actually like go for a kiss on that scene, but we were like, so in the script it was like a will they, won't they, but it was like more like we were gonna just look at each other and just kind of like be there. And then we did the scene once. And then Samson and I went to the back, and, like, as they were like resetting up the camera, and we're like, should we just go for a kiss? And they're like, yeah, and great. And then we just like do the scene, and then we just like have the moment where we look at each other, and then just like slowly lean, and no one stopped us, and we just like kiss, and then yell cut, and then everybody was like, what just happened? And then they were like, yeah, lean into that, like, you know, have that almost kiss moment, don't actually go for it, because then David was like, I'm glad that this happened because we're gonna touch back on that later. And we were like, okay, great, good times.
After in the later, I forget which one it was, but where like you're freaking out and I asked if you have a nervous tummy.
Nervous tummy.
You can't make it in the show.
We started to sort of a lot of that in, but we had like a full like kind of mini argument. Where it's just sort of like, you're not the only one captured by the British here, you know? You were like speaking, I was like feeling very wounded. You were being very happy with me, and I was like, what is your deal? You know, like, I was like, why?
Wow, I'd really forgotten about that.
Yeah, we did a whole bit, but I think the cameras weren't even going.
Absolutely. So it's the scene where chopping up, or trying to chop up Lucius's finger, which has been infected by buttons of rotten teeth. Yeah, the scene was basically, okay, you're going to try chop his finger, and then he runs off. And then there was no button to the scene. The guy would run off, Lucius would run off. And so I was like, okay, I better come up with something to end the scene. And because Roach is someone who loves torture and loves just having some action as a doctor or a pirate or a cook, I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna come do the line, this is all a dream, come back, this is all fun, we're having fun and games, just maybe chop off the limb, just that kind of thing. And they kept that in the script, so that was a lot of fun. And there was more to that scene that got deleted, which is like, we tried to hold him down and sedate him, and then Black Pete over sedates him, and Lucius accidentally dies and comes back to life real quick and then runs off. In episode 3, I believe, when I'm rowing away toward the Spanish ship with Fred Armisen and Steve Bonnet and Reese Darby and them, we're in that little boat rowing. And I said I made an assortment of tapas for the Spanish. And then I say that's like catnip for Spaniards. And then Fred Armisen goes, yeah, I know what tapas are. And then I proceeded to just list all the tapas I had made. Like I made bocado and yoquetas. It just went on for 5 minutes, and the director was Spanish, and I'm Nacho. Rigalando was the director, and he was like, keep naming all these tapas dishes you made, just keep going. And so it went on for 5-6 minutes of me just listing every kind of dish I knew.